Hello, and welcome to the third session of Gustavo's Book Club every Monday. And we are currently reading Dr. McDougall's book, which is called Dr. McDougall's Medicine, a Challenging Second Opinion. I hope that you are enjoying the book. I hope that you have it. Many of you have emailed me to ask me for a copy of the book since it is not available anymore for free on Dr. McDougall's website, but I can still email it to you if you would like to have it. Make sure that when you watch this video later on in YouTube, that you look in the description area of the video, because there you can find important links that I always add to the description. Thank you very much for being here. And today it's a very special session for me because it's a topic that it's very important to me, very dear to my heart, no pun intended. The two chapters that I asked you to read have to do with heart disease and atherosclerosis. This topic touched my life starting in the year 1999 when a little before that, my grandfather, my dad's father, was a medical doctor. He suffered from diabetes and also heart disease, and he had a heart attack when he died. And my father suffered that. At that point, I was in my late 30s, and it was a very, very sad, very difficult time. And since then, people in my family have suffered from this horrible condition. And one of the main reasons that I decided to change to a whole food, plant-based way of eating, centered around healthy and whole starches, like Dr. McDougall says, is because what I saw, what I went through was a nightmare, and I want to avoid it. I don't want to say I don't want to go through it. I mean, I don't, but we can do all within our power, and that's what I believe. I believe what Dr. McDougall says, that it's the food. It's that simple. I just want to tell you also that we don't need to be doctors to understand some of the concepts. We don't need to go to medical school. I admire doctors. I have doctors in my family, very close relatives. And I am a doctor, but I'm a doctor in music. I'm not a medical doctor. And of course, I can't perform an open heart surgery, and I don't want to. I can't, fix a broken leg. I can't write a prescription or change prescriptions or things like that. But you and I can actually understand some of these concepts that Dr. McDougall explains to us in such wonderful ways, easy ways. And we have intelligence, we have brains. Doctors are human just like we are. There are things that we can understand, and then we can make up our minds, and we can make decisions about our health. And if we have doubts, that's when you can have a second or a third or a fourth opinion, and make the decision that fits your beliefs. Very good. So I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Let's see some of the comments. Just saw you I have a bright light here, so I can't see. Let me see. I'm going to turn off the cam. Well, just so you talk on Dr. McDougall, how you lost your weight. And yes, exactly. Thank you for sharing, Gustavo. Um, yes, these are very personal things. All of these illnesses and diseases, most of them preventable and reversible, are very painful, not only in our bodies, but emotionally and psychologically and in every way. So let's get started. The beginning of chapter 4 is just brilliant. It's just brilliant how Dr. McDougall explains in easy to understand terms what atherosclerosis is. And I don't want to skip any words for this little bit here that I'm going to read to you. This, if you have the book with you, this is chapter 4, and that is on page 97. And so here we go. What is atherosclerosis? Well, it is the hardening of the arteries, period. Okay? Easy to remember, easy to understand. There are arteries in our bodies, plumbing. We all have plumbing. We have all sorts of pipes going around all over our body. We have arteries, we have veins, we have esophagus, we have plumbing, and this plumbing can get clogged up. And I have a hose outside that I use to water the yard. And this hose is older. I have a new one, and the older one got hard. And so it broke off one day. And I just want to say that these arteries and this plumbing that we have can get clogged up. It can get hard. It can bust. It can break. A lot of things can happen, but they don't have to happen. They don't. We are not doomed. We can make a difference with what goes in our mouths. So you should think of atherosclerosis, Dr. McDougall says, as being something like a lot of sores forming on the insides of your arteries. If you can imagine your arteries, and inside them, there are all of these little sores that are forming, that eventually they grow into the walls of the arteries. So atherosclerosis actually begins as little wounds that produce tiny changes in the cells that line the innermost layer of the arteries. Initially, these cells are injured by high levels of fat and cholesterol. This is very important to understand, that the first injuries happen when we have high levels of fat and cholesterol that are present in the blood that is circulating in our bodies. And most people eat these foods that are provided by the American diet, which is rich, the standard American diet. Other sources of injury, because fat and cholesterol are the main sources, but there are other sources of injury. And these other sources of injury to the linings of the blood vessel are mechanical, such as surgery, high blood pressure, chemicals such as carbon monoxide and other byproducts of tobacco smoke, and antigen antibody complexes derived from food proteins that pass through the intestinal wall. If the injury occurs for only a short period of time and is not too severe, then the lining of the artery will heal. And this is important to know, that our arteries and our body as a whole is constantly trying to heal itself. If we just gave it a chance to do that, like it says here, if that injury is short, but just imagine you taking a knife and going a little bit here, my finger, an injury. That's tiny. Well, okay, I'll put a band-aid, it'll probably close. But if 4 or 5 times a day I'm going like that with that knife, that injury, it doesn't have a chance to close, to heal. And I do that 3 or 4 times a day. Some people do it more times. And then the next day, the same thing. And the next day, I do that for years. That's exactly what happens if you continue to attack your body with high fat and high cholesterol and high ultra processed foods. So Dr. McDougall says, if, however, the cause of injury continues, as it usually does because of our daily eating and living habits, then permanent changes will take place. These permanent changes consist of an overgrowth of the muscle cells that normally make up the central layer in an artery wall. There are different layers in the artery wall. In the middle, you have muscle cells, and there was going to be an overgrowth if you continue to injure your arteries. Blood clotting elements called platelets and also white blood cells that are attracted to the site of injury, because remember that every time there is an injury, the body sends white blood cells to heal, to stimulate the growth of these muscle cells, thus playing an important part in the development of atherosclerosis. As a result of the body's attempt to heal these wounds, scar tissue, remember, these are wounds. So like any other wounds, the body will try to heal, and it's going to put a little layer of scar tissue. This scar tissue is deposited at the sites of injury, causing a condition known as fibrosis. Because the sores are open at all times to blood containing high levels of fat and cholesterol, these two substances can enter the artery and accumulate within the arterial wall. This mixture of muscle cells, scar tissue, fats, and cholesterol, four things, forms a swelling on the inner surface of the artery. A single such swelling is called a plaque. That's what a plaque is that swelling. In the early stages of plaque formation, the process of fat accumulation is most evident in the areas of atherosclerosis are known as fatty streak deposits. Later, scar tissue predominates, and the disease consists of many hard fibrous plaques. This is when the condition is known as hardening of the arteries. All stages of the disease, from fatty streaks to plaques, are present in the arteries of most adults. So most of you and myself already have it. Even in later years of life and more advanced stages of disease, atherosclerosis is a dynamic process and deterioration and repair within the arterial wall rather than permanent progression toward a catastrophic event. Atherosclerosis affects the arteries in two ways that can threaten your health and your life. Okay, now listen, there are two ways that atherosclerosis can affect the arteries. First, the plaques accumulate within the passageway in the artery, interfering with the normal flow of blood. Eventually, the blockages become so severe that insufficient blood reaches the tissues. Then troubles like pain or death of the starved tissues occur. Second, atherosclerosis causes degeneration of the artery wall so that the walls lose their strength and elasticity. An eventual outcome of weakened arteries can be rupture of the wall. Some strokes are caused when a blood vessel in the brain leaks or bursts wide open. The bulging artery in your belly is caused by loss of strength in the walls of the largest blood vessel in your body. The condition is called an abdominal aortic aneurysm. When the aneurysm reaches a certain size, the chances of its rupturing become very likely. How does this develop? Because it develops without any symptoms until most of this damage is already done. Tragically, blood vessels begin to clog up and suffer damage soon after the first bite we take from a well-balanced, we should say in quotation marks, meal plan arranged around the basic 4 groups of food. So basically, from the time we're born and we start eating anything else other than mother's milk, the damage starts. Children as young as 9 months of age can show the beginnings of atherosclerosis by the fatty streak deposits found along the walls of their large arteries. Every child who has been raised on the high-fat, high-cholesterol American diet, which offers plentiful amounts of cow's milk, cheese, hot dogs, hamburgers, milkshakes, shakes, and French fries, has signs of this disease by the tender age of 3. Yes, you're hearing it right. You're reading it right. And all of this is backed up by quotations that Dr. McDougall has at the end of the chapter with all of the medical studies that back up his what he's writing. By the teenage years, the degree of damage has advanced to the stage where the soft deposits of fats in the arteries are joined by hard, fibrous scar tissue to form the larger sores inside the artery wall, which are referred to as hard, fibrous plaques. So I am amazed, it says here, someone, that this disease gets started when we're so young. How do doctors know this? Well, arteries can be examined during life by an X-ray technique called angiography, or after death at autopsy. One study which shows how severe and frequent this disease is in youth was done on American battle victims during the Korean conflict. The average age of those physically conditioned fighting men was 22 years. On autopsy examination, 77% of the hearts showed atherosclerotic disease in the arteries that supplied their heart muscle, known as the coronary arteries. The hard fibrous variety of plaques were evident in 35% of the autopsy specimens. Of the 300 men examined, 8 actually had nearly complete or complete blockage of at least one of the essential arteries that had kept their hearts beating long enough to allow them to be killed in action. This epidemic disease really gets out of control as people approach their middle years. By then, the atherosclerotic plaques in the arteries have grown so much that the majority of the hearts of men at high risk, often because they already suffer with some chest pains, have serious disease. For example, when examined by angiography, studies show that at least 1 out of the 3 major coronary arteries is narrowed by 50% or more in approximately half of the high-risk men below the age of 40. With each year of life, atherosclerosis affects more people and the disease becomes more severe in each person. What are some of the problems that people get when their arteries become clogged up? Well, most of the complications, Dr. McDougall says, of atherosclerosis are regarded as problems with the organs that depend upon their supply of blood from a severe diseased artery. Because the entire blood vessel system suffers from poor health, people with excessive atherosclerosis usually have a number of problems that, in fact, are all explained by the poor condition of their arteries. In the United States, the most common problems from atherosclerosis are seen when the blood vessels to the heart are affected. Heart victims may develop chest pains called angina from partial blockage resulting in inadequate circulation to the heart muscle. When this silent disease progresses to a complete blockage of a coronary artery, the piece of heart muscle then deprived of blood dies. This event, no longer silent, is known as a heart attack. And there is here a graph that I want to show you. Look at that. At the very bottom here, we have birth. At birth, the artery is clean, no blockages. Young child, the one above, there is some fatty streaks and deposits. A teenager has fibrous plaques. Young adults, you can see how much more the disease has advanced, has progressed. Adults, even more. And in the adult category, we have almost entirely blocked, then we have rupture, and then we have complete closure. Plaque reversal after change, okay? So when you start to change and only follow a whole food, plant-based diet centered around starches, after 1 year, you can go back to young adults, okay? So it actually reverses itself. And then after 2 or more years, you can go back to being a young child artery-wise. You may be very familiar with the work of Dr. Esselstyn, who wrote Reversing Heart Disease, a book and a cookbook, and Dr. Ornish, Dr. Dean Ornish, who these doctors made serious, very important studies that were actually published in medical journals. So this is not something that is hidden. And with pictures of arteries taken before and after the change of diet. And it shows the reversal of the arteries going back to being less clogged up. So I think that that was a very good illustration there. Let's see if I can read some of your comments here, but I'm going to have to turn off the camera. Okay, let's see. Okay, my mom and dad had atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries. Remember him very angry. Okay, very good. Well, I hope that that this is becoming clearer as we continue. I hope that this is becoming clearer as we continue to learn and understand how this disease develops. So, interestingly enough, heart attacks can first start to appear in teenagers. And as people get older, this cause of death and disability increases in magnitude until it becomes epidemic. More than 1 million heart attacks are reported each year in this country, in the United States. Coronary heart disease accounts for nearly 700,000 deaths annually, which is more deaths than are caused by any other disease, including all forms of cancer. Men are more susceptible to coronary artery disease and heart attacks than women. But however, as women pass through menopause, the protective advantage of their gender disappears. Often, events caused by artery blockage are sudden and unexpected, and approximately half the victims dying from heart attacks never knew they were at risk because they had no previous warning symptoms. Heart attacks are highly lethal. Half the people suffering from a heart attack never reach a hospital alive. So, what happened when these clogged and damaged arteries are in the brain? Well, that leads to strokes, hemorrhages, and temporary losses of brain function called transient ischemic attacks, TIS. Lowered supply of blood to the kidneys from narrowed arteries causes high blood pressure and kidney failure. When the legs are deprived of essential nutrients, walking becomes painful, as has happened in your case. Eventually, the foot or the entire leg may die from lack of blood, and gangrene may develop, which of course requires amputation. What else can happen when the arteries are clogged up? Well, hearing loss is an expected part of growing old in our country. However, in many other parts of the world, people keep this important function until they die at an old age. As atherosclerosis develops throughout the body, the arteries that supply blood to the hearing apparatus become plugged and deafness begins. Close to the hearing organs are the organs regulating balance. Poor circulation to those organs can cause dizziness and loss of balance or vertigo. What else can this cause, these arteries that are plugged up? Well, in many cases, impotence, failure of sexual performance in men are the result of atherosclerotic disease of the vessels that supply blood to the penis and nerves that enable erection along with sexual arousal. 34% of middle-aged men suffer from impotence. So the heart attack is the result of the rupture of a plaque. I'm going to share my screen here because I am, let's see, on page 102, and I would like for you to see that. Okay, here we go. Page 102. Plaques are filled with fat. When they reach a large enough size, they become ripe and can easily break open, spilling their fatty contents into the bloodstream. This triggers the formation of a clot, which is called thrombosis, which suddenly plugs the artery completely. Along with the clot formation, strong spasms of the muscles in the artery wall occur. These spasms cause damage by further decreasing the flow of blood to the heart muscle or other vital tissues. Plaque rupture and clot formation are more likely to happen as atherosclerosis progresses while one grows older and becomes poorer in health, in general health. So what exactly in my diet causes atherosclerosis? Well, most of you in this book club know the answer. The answer is cholesterol in your diet and in your body should be the central focus of your understanding of the cause, prevention, and treatment of atherosclerosis. I don't know if you've seen cholesterol. I've seen it in films. Cholesterol is a waxy substance that is synthesized by all animals as an important part of their tissues. It is used in the body for the production of certain hormones and for the synthesis of bile acids and vitamin D. Being highly efficient human beings, we make all the cholesterol we need. And this is something to highlight here, to underline. We make all the cholesterol we need. We don't need to ingest extra because it's difficult for the body to get rid of it. We make all the cholesterol that we need. No additional cholesterol is required from our diet. On the other hand, no plant produces or contains any cholesterol at all. So that is why consuming a whole food and plant-based diet is the perfect way to start healing these arteries. Cholesterol that has been exposed to air and heat is changed into an oxidized form that is believed to be especially damaging to the blood vessels. Dried, powdered, aged, smoked, and cooked meats, dairy, and egg products contain the greatest amounts of this oxidized, highly toxic cholesterol. So make sure that you remember this. This oxidized form of cholesterol is highly toxic and damaging. And it comes from meat that is cooked, smoked, aged, dried, and also from dairy and eggs. All right, let's see here. I'm going through some of these charts. I hope that you have the book so that you can spend time looking at those charts. And now we get to the part where it says, I tried to lower my cholesterol level once by giving up red meat for chicken and fish. My level didn't go down at all. The doctor and the dietitian I visited said I probably had some genetic problem. Most likely, none of us here have a genetic defect. Most likely. Not many people do. Instead, what went wrong were the ineffective dietary changes you made based on incorrect information. Actually, all kinds of the meats you've mentioned are muscles from different animals. Some move tails, other limbs, other fins. If you lay pieces of those meats aside by side on a tabletop, you will see that they look quite similar and are distinctly different from an ear of a corn or a head of cabbage. When evaluated by size of portions, the cholesterol content of each of these meats is about the same. Yes, look at this. Cholesterol content based on portion size. Beef has 70 milligrams of cholesterol per 100 grams. Pork 70, lamb 70, chicken skinned 60, turkey skinned 82, halibut, haddock, tuna in the 60s, mackerel 95, crab 100%, okay, milligrams per 100 grams, shrimp 150, lobster 200, cheese 106, liver. Look at the eggs 550. All plant foods, zero, zero cholesterol. This is on a per calorie basis. The cholesterol contents of an American's favorite foods give some surprising figures. Based on calories consumed, chicken and fish have approximately twice as much cholesterol as red meats do. So the logical question is, why did the dietitian think that if I replace red meat with fish and chicken, this will lower my cholesterol? Well, dietitians and doctors have focused their attention on the quantity and types of fats present in a particular food to claim advantages for poultry and fish over red meats such as beef, pork, and lamb. Red meats and dairy products also contain higher amounts of the saturated varieties of fats. These types of fats raise the blood cholesterol level. Fish and chicken contain less saturated fats and more polyunsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated fat tend to lower cholesterol levels. These fats cause the body to excrete more cholesterol and thereby actually drive cholesterol out of the arteries and the body. Gram for gram, saturated fats raise the cholesterol level about twice as much as polyunsaturated fats will lower the cholesterol. In other words, when beef, chicken, or fish is fed to volunteers, each kind of meat causes a similar rise in blood cholesterol level in the subjects. The higher cholesterol content of chicken and fish cancels the effect of the lower content of saturated fats. The end result is a similar effect on the blood cholesterol. All of these muscle foods must be eliminated from your diet, or at the very least decreased considerably in amount if you want to lower your cholesterol level and improve the health of your arteries. So is there something called good cholesterol and bad cholesterol? Is this important? Well, the types of cholesterol found in your body are less important for you to know about than is the total amount of cholesterol. So Dr. McDougall goes on to explain the LDL, the HDL, but at the very end, he says that what we should be focusing is on the total amount of cholesterol. For your purpose and mine, he says, a value for total cholesterol is all the information we need to make effective decisions about diet and lifestyle. Dr. McDougall talks a little bit about fish and fish oil. The oils in fish are the ingredients that seem to reduce the triglyceride levels. The effect of fish oil on lowering blood triglycerides is not shared with polyunsaturated vegetable oils obtained from seeds such as corn and safflower. These vegetable oils lead to a rise in triglycerides. The fats in fish oil have a special chemical structure that is also found in some parts of plant cells, but not in their seeds. However, a diet low in all types of fats and based upon plant foods is equally as effective as fish and fish oils in lowering blood triglycerides. Pure fish oil not only will decrease the level of triglycerides in the blood, but unlike fish meat, it will lower the cholesterol level as well. Some health professionals believe that Americans with high blood levels of triglycerides and cholesterol will not accept a low-fat diet for their health problems. An easier alternative these authorities suggest would be to add high-fat fish or fish oil to the diet each day. Again, I think that the patient needs to be given all the options and let the person decide. Some fatty fish contain a considerable amount of polyunsaturated fat called, oh wow, this is a long word, icosapentaenoic acid, abbreviated as EPA. I like that better. This fat has a tendency to thin the blood by decreasing the stickiness of the blood clotting elements called platelets. This property of fat fish may be the best explanation for the low rate of heart attacks among the meat-eating Eskimos who also eat a lot of fish. So, fish oil without the cholesterol found in the fish sounds like a great addition to my diet, right? It says here. Well, not exactly. As a result of these findings, capsules containing EPA have been promoted by the health food industry and some medical professionals, and fish has become America's newest health food. However, the positive benefits of fish, as well as fish oil, for decreasing the risk of heart disease must be balanced against some negative effects. So there's always some negative effects that you must consider when you're going to take these pills. Some of them can cause serious bleeding problems because of its blood thinning property. Excess polyunsaturated fat from any source is also associated with increased chances for developing cancer and gallbladder disease. Fish oil is 100% fat, and high fat fish is 60% fat. The body requires carbohydrates for energy and other metabolic needs. Excess amounts of proteins from the fish will cause loss of calcium from the bones and likely damage to the kidneys. So that's something else to consider when you are thinking about taking these supplements of fish oil. You may be losing more calcium from your bones, and you may be damaging your kidneys. Furthermore, since fish occupy a position high in the food chain, they are heavily contaminated with pesticides, insecticides, and other environmental pollutants. Also, people who eat lots of high fat fish can have oily skin and hair and can even smell like fish. Therefore, for the sake of your general health, I suggest that you keep to a minimum all the flesh foods in your diet, including fish. Taking fish oil to prevent heart disease makes little nutritional sense. The total cholesterol that Dr. McDougall and Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. Ornish, most doctors really, will tell you is between 150 and 160 total cholesterol. You're pretty much a heart attack proof. You don't have to worry about it if your total cholesterol is 150 to 160. What causes calcification of heart valve? Well, it can be reversed. Yes, it can. It was shown in the diagram there. And I will include in this replay, when the replay goes out, make sure you click on the video for the description of the video, and I will include the several webinars that I did with Dr. McDougall about heart disease, and I will include others as well. It can be reversed. You have to be consistent and extremely you have to be very You have to follow it strictly. You have to be very strict. Dr. Esselstyn, when he gets people in his group, there is no, oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. No. If you have plaque and if you have calcification in your arteries, it's you must follow it. You must follow the diet very strictly. All right. So I'm going to put a parenthesis here and tell you that I did ask Dr. McDougall your questions last week when we were talking about excessive protein and we were talking, let's see here, hold on just a minute. Let me find the email that I sent him. The problem of osteoporosis and excessive protein. So one of the questions was, a low protein diet prevents osteoporosis. Agreed, but didn't realize that even lentils and beans can be give you too much protein. I eat a lot of garbanzo beans and Indian lentils. Should I cut back on all of that? And Dr. McDougall's answer is, and I'm reading it, you should limit your legumes, beans, peas, and lentils, certainly less than 1 cup a day cooked if you have osteoporosis. Another one said, saw Mary's Mini that said you can use beans as starch. Is that correct? And Dr. McDougall says, not beans, legumes. They are too rich in protein. Center around corn, rice, potatoes, etc. Another one says, so for someone who has osteopenia, would the recommendation be for less than a cup combined beans, peas, lentils, or to exclude them completely? And so he says maybe, and he sends a link which I will put in the description area of this video so that you can read what he sent me. And finally, one of you said, so 50-gram protein daily would be considered okay for someone with osteoporosis? Dr. McDougall says, yes, but it would be hard to get that low. So why would it be hard to get that low? Because if you eat enough calories, you are going to consume more than 50 grams of protein a day. It's going to be plant-based, and there is a range there if you want to go back and read between 50 and 100 that it's still safe. But it would be very difficult to consume 50 unless you limit your calories or you eat very few starches, which is not a good idea because you would end up starving, being hungry, and making bad choices. All right, so I always read your comments later on, and if you have any questions, make sure you type them here, and I will ask Dr. McDougall. Very good. Well, I appreciate you staying here with me for almost an hour, and make sure that you read chapter 4 and 5. You are most welcome to email me questions, which I will compile and ask Dr. McDougall. But what we get out of these 2 chapters is eliminate anything that comes from an animal because it has excessive fat, excessive cholesterol, excessive protein, hormones, etc. And so it comes down to that. That's when Dr. McDougall says sometimes he gets a little bit irritated in a way and says, it's too simple. People want to make it complicated. It's simple. The fat you eat is the fat you wear, and it's all about the food. Switch to a starch-based, plant-based diet that centers on whole foods and not on highly processed products. Next week is my birthday, so there's going to be a surprise. You can join me to celebrate my birthday next week, and I will be sending you an email with the invitation. Make sure you look for that email, and I hope that you will be able to join me for that special time. And I'll see you next week. Those of you who are a member of Gustavo's Tea Club, Tea with Dr. T on Tuesdays, I'll see you tomorrow. We will have fun tomorrow. I'm going to show you something really interesting. And if you're not a member and want to be a member, this is a small, intimate group. Please send me an email and I will send you the link to become a member. Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.